Okay, so another thing she brings up is the idea of when you don't understand what energy you're operating from, sometimes you can be operating from the same energy space as your significant other, which will lead to lots of clashing because when you're too much alike, you're going to do this clash and you're not going to do this because this is harmony. This is when yin and yang work together to balance one another out. For example, you could have two people in a relationship, and it could be male and female relationship, or male and male, or woman and woman, but whatever the case. Let's just say both people are predominantly masculine in their dominant energy, and they both want their thoughts respected. And so what you'll find is that there'll become this power struggle where you're both like doing a tug of war, just fighting for power in the relationship. And you got to understand that the masculine energy is wanting the power in the relationship. And if both of you are in that energy space and you're operating from that in the relationship, that is why you probably have lots of arguments. That is why you probably don't harmonize and communicate very well, because you're both fighting for the same role. The same could be said for two people operating from feminine energy. You both want your feelings respected. Or not respected, I'm sorry. You both want your feelings cherished. And when that happens, then you'll also find lots of clashing, because both people are like, well, what about how I feel? And what about how I feel? And like everybody's just in this feeling space, and nobody can come up with solutions for making the other person feel better, because it takes an opposite to do that. And so you'll find that, a lot of times in your relationships, the communication breakdown happens when we don't understand what space or what energy we're communicating from. And if you understand yourself, then you'll know what you communicate from, and you got to understand your mate so that you can deliver the right kind of energy in order to have a breakthrough in the communication, in order to communicate so much better and so much more effectively and efficiently. And so this is why I love the concept of, again, this book. This is why this is my favorite chapter of the book, because without this, as a matter of fact, this is the foundation. And without this, you will basically be running around on this earth not knowing why your relationships turn out the way they do, why you struggle in certain areas, and the same with the other person. It's just about understanding who are you by nature, fundamentally, at the core, and are you operating from that, your truth, or are you wearing a mask? And if you're wearing a mask, telling yourself that it's okay to take the mask off and be what you really are in a relationship, so that you can have all of your needs met and so that you can meet the needs of other people. And that's just it. It's just that simple. There's one other topic that I wanted to touch on that I totally forgot to mention in regards to understanding the energies that you're operating from. And this part of the discussion is basically dedicated to the ladies, and males, you can listen in on it, but it deals with domestic violence. And I wanted to address it when I'm talking about this book and the concept, because I believe that one of the main reasons why we have lots of domestic violent cases, especially when domestic violence is not a predominant background for either person that could be involved in a domestic violence case. And part of that is when you are dealing with someone who is predominantly masculine in energy. And this is the topic of when two people have the same kind of energy and they clash. So when you get a woman who is masculine in energy, when she's dealing with a guy who is also masculine in energy, particularly an alpha male, I'm sorry, something's in my tooth. I just ate. At any rate, what you'll find is that both people tend to clash a lot, particularly when it comes to communicating. They're not able to express their ideas to one another because both people are not being able to listen or hear the other, if that makes any sense. And what I mean by that is, if you're predominantly masculine, you have a way of communicating, right? And it takes a complete opposite to be able to receive the way you deliver your messages. And if that person is operating from the same space as you, you're going to get this. nobody's going to hear each other. You're probably going to get into a little tizzy where you're, saying some things to one another because you're frustrated that the communication isn't taking place the way you want it to. And so what I've come to find from, some of my girlfriends and even just observing other people's relationships is that when the woman is operating from masculine energy, sometimes she puts herself in a very compromising position. So much so that from what I've observed, a lot of women put themselves in position to even be part of domestic violence cases and disputes. And I've seen it start as early as elementary. People don't know this, but I've had the privilege of being in the education system, and I've witnessed lots of young girls as early as kindergarten where they start practicing these habits of, when I'm frustrated with you, I don't care if you're a girl or a boy, or particularly if you're a boy, if I'm frustrated with you, I'm going to hit you, or I'm going to slap you, or I'm going to get in your face and say something to emasculate you and make you feel less than a boy or less than a man. And I've seen it time and time again, to the point where even 10-year-olds, I would see the girls jumping in the guys' faces like, you're not going to do anything, I'll slap you, you can't beat me up, you can't do this and that, and like literally threatening his personal space. And I found myself having to interject and tell them, listen, you can't do that. Do not put yourself in that position, because by nature, men are physically stronger than us. They can physically dominate us by nature. And so what these girls don't understand, and possibly because nobody's ever taught them or told them the difference, is that if you want to confront a guy, your best bet is not to challenge him in a way that will cause him to act out of instinct instead of compassion. Because when you challenge an alpha male in a physical way, then he's no longer going to see you as this dainty woman who needs to be protected. He's going to see you as a threat. I want you to think back to cavemen days. When a man felt threatened by another man, they would fight to the death. And you got to fast forward to now. And instinctively, that's the way that men are designed. They are designed instinctively, especially when they're alpha males, to basically protect their territory from any threats. And so when you invade a man's personal space, not just a man, but even a boy's personal space, he's going to act out of instinct. He's no longer going to see that pretty little face of yours. You're going to be a threat to him. And if it's a physical threat, then by all means, young lady, please prepare yourself, brace yourself, because you have opened up Pandora's box of worms, and you're putting yourself in a position that you're really not physically capable of handling. And unfortunately, the way that laws are designed and society works is that nobody ever really looks into these kind of dynamics. They automatically will label the guy, no matter how the altercation starts, they will automatically label the male a woman beater if he ever gets into a physical altercation with a female. But I want to challenge society to even look a little bit deeper, because there are roots to all of these problems. And if you don't get to the root of the problem, then you're going to continuously have this cycle happening. And you're going to continuously have women who put themselves in the face of danger, not knowing how they got there. And these boys who find themselves in position, or these men who find themselves in positions not knowing how they got there, because they don't understand the fundamental roles that are being played. And when they are not in harmony, that it leads to breeding ground for things such as this. And to bring it back to case in point, I remember an experience I had while teaching, and there was this girl who I would speak to all the time because she found herself basically being like a tomboy, right? She would always play with this guy that she had a crush on. Now, this guy that she had a crush on, granted, these are 10-year-olds. The little boy that she had a crush on happens to be an alpha male. He's very boyish, very rugged, very aggressive, and she wanted to get his attention. So she would play around with him in a way where she would like hit him, like push him. But he was the type that he was very aggressive and bullish, that if you physically touched him, he was going to touch you back. And so I had to tell her, sweetie, I know you like him, but that's not the way to get his attention. If you like him, you need to do something other than physically hit him or call him names and, you know, just any little thing in an aggressive manner. She was basically exuding masculine dominance. And I saw that it was a recipe for disaster from jump because of my understanding. And literally she said, but he tells her to shut up. Shut up, you shut up. And she was like, you don't tell me to shut up because I'll slap you in your face. And he was like, I'd like to see you try it. So she gets up and proceeds to walk in his face and like put her hand up like she's gonna slap him. And he jumps up and he's like getting ready to like punch her because she's all in his face. And if you can understand based on my earlier conversation, what's happening in this moment within both of them is that they're both doing this masculine thing and they are about to collide. And when you're that young, you don't understand, oh, she's a girl, I need not to hit her, especially when she's coming at you with that kind of aggression that another male or another alpha male would come at you with. And you got to remember now, this is all instinct. So when someone's coming at you with that kind of energy, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to lie down and let you hit them? In that case, absolutely not. It did land. And his punch landed harder. Landed 10 times harder. So at that point, I had to diffuse the situation, pull them apart, because they were looking at each other like they wanted to kill one another. But then once she realized the significance of the punch, that it really, really hurt, she started crying and she got in her feelings. And that's her feminine core. And she found herself wearing a mask in the moment, not realizing that I'm really this feminine thing that needs to be protected and cherished. But I put myself in a position to be demolished like a masculine alpha male. And I'm not that. And I gave that scenario because I see it happen all the time. What we never hear is the background stories. What we never hear is the nature of the argument that caused the physical altercation. And I'm almost certain that a lot of times in a lot of these cases, and not all, that female was wearing a masculine mask, even if it was for a few minutes, because it doesn't always take a physical hit when a woman is wearing a masculine mask. Sometimes all it takes is some very emasculating words where you are trying to make him feel less than a man because of your anger towards him in that moment, where you're calling him all kinds of names, where you're belittling him and you're telling him he's less than a man, that you're more of a man than he is, all kinds of things. And I've seen it happen. I'm not pulling this out of the air. This is real life people, and real people go through these things. And so I just want to tell women, my girls, my ladies, my queens, don't put yourself in those positions. Understand the nature of what you're being when you're interacting with men. If you understand your role, you're going to know the lines that need to be drawn. You're going to know how far you can push him before he becomes, you know, somebody who could possibly attack you, because maybe you're attacking him and you don't even realize it because you're just mad and angry and frustrated for whatever reasons. So again, it's very important to never notice that men tend to come to their senses when you decide to walk away from them, when you decide to shut down and cut off all communication. And I think that's because it gives them a moment to actually think things through. Because when you're angry and in the heat of the moment, you're not trying to hear anything. But when you shut down and walk away, honey, you have the power, because that is when he will start to want to listen to you. Not when you're barking at him like this. Not when you're telling him that, you know, he's not a good man. He's, you know, you're emasculating him with your words and you're threatening him physically. He's not going to hear you. But he will hear what you need when you make when you make yourself absent. Remove yourself from the situation. And all my girls, you probably can attest to this because you've probably been here a time or two. He realizes when he messes up, and a lot of us like to say, well, he realizes it when it's too late. But I like to challenge that, because it's not that he realizes it when it's too late. He realizes it once you remove yourself from the situation. It doesn't take an argument for him to realize it. It takes removal of the feminine energy from the situation to get his attention. And once he can think, then that's when you can come back to him and say, hey, this is what I require. This is how I need to be loved. This is how I need to be cherished. And I guarantee that if he loves you, he's going to adjust, because he does not want to lose somebody that he feels like he cannot live without. And that is the honest to God truth. I hope this information helps somebody out there, and feel free to share again and Come back soon. Love you guys.